Hey, Larry from Real Hi-Fi Help. So here we have it, the CDT-Four. It took me forever to get. Um, yeah, the best CD player I've ever owned. I want to show you guys something. These are basically some of my like top albums that I constantly listen to. That's the Bad album, Michael Jackson, Pet Shop Boys, actually Led Zeppelin. I like to play Dazed and Confused a lot. Schindler's List, very, very hard to play on any CD player, especially this Isaac Perlman album. Fantastic violinist, fantastic skill of playing the violin. Sounds, these two albums especially, they're almost impossible to play on most CD players. But what I want to say is that um, these things here, they basically sound like all of these records that I have over here. These are really high quality records that I used a lot of time getting a hold of. And that's what this thing does. It makes CDs sound analog. And I've got here in my possession I'm pretty sure one of the top 50 CD players of all time. The Denon DCD QSA1 Special Edition Japanese version made for EU Power. That's the only one that's ever been made. I've got that, and I've got the matching amp together with it. I have to tell you guys that even that gear, which sounds absolutely amazing, can't get close to when I have the Audionote CD player going through the Audionote DAC over to the Denon or over to the what's it called, the Audionote auto amplifier. There's just a form of freedom of musicality where you have this musical art form of expressing yourself, where it starts over there right in front of the speaker, and then it renders some kind of detail, and then it goes all the way from the speaker to here, directly to your heart. And it's this unreleased energy that creates a form of sincerity, which I don't get with the Denon one. And oddly enough, this is a Denon CD player that can play 24 bits and 16 bits. So I can clearly hear there is a difference. And in a way, it sounds more genuine when I play it 16 bit. But the thing is, if I play these CDs here, 16 bit over there, it just sounds like a really good CD player, still working hard on making it sound natural. Of course, it sounds a bit more natural, 16 bit, but the thing is, it still sounds a bit thin, a bit fragile, and just a tiny bit processed. And of course, the price difference is huge. I think that this was like, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 US dollars new, and that was like, I have no idea. It's probably like 30,000-40,000 US dollars new some years ago. I don't know. So clearly there's a difference in terms of price. But what I'm saying is that the thing I keep experiencing with all of these CD players here is that, especially because of the 24-bit mode that a lot of CD players are playing, it sounds processed. It doesn't sound fully genuine. It sounds like it's putting the music into some sort of buffer. It's treating the music, and in a way, some parts of the music, like here with this player here, the Denon player, it gets sort of rich and heavy in a way, and slowed down, and a bit weak and dark and old-fashioned like retro sound. And that's good. That's good. And then you get over to the Technics one, which is a completely different type of sound, completely neutral in a way that could bother a lot of people, where it goes out of its way to not have a signature at all. A lot of people won't like that type of sound, and I think a lot of people will like that type of sound, where there's absolutely no color, no distortion, But still, even though it sounds a lot more clear, a lot more focused, it's still to some degree a processed sound. At the end of the day, you can clearly hear that this is digital. You can clearly hear that, and this is made around 2020, and this is made around, I don't know, 2010-ish. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter what you do with most CD players, they always, to some degree, sound like they are manipulating the sound, doing something to it. And then you might have a CD player which is a bit more vanilla, and then it gets a bit more dark and creamy and rich, and then you got something over here that's a lot more clear, focused, and versatile. And then when you switch from the CD player to the DAC, then it's like, whoa, it's a whole other beast, but still not quite the level of quality over there. It's just you can't fake sincerity. And the thing is, I'm hearing no filters on this, and I'm hearing a lot of really, really expensive parts in that. I might be totally wrong. I've never seen how it looks inside, but it just feels like you're running something in a pure mode, and then you're running it through the highest quality parts that you could find, and then you're feeding it over to something that's similar, which has a good coupling, and then you can either go the Denon route or the audio note route. They both, each amp has their own priority in sound, and it works pretty well both ways. And what I'm saying is that's what we need. We need more of this stuff on the market, where this is full soul. This is full texture, tastes, tonality. There's a sort of authentic timing with this. And all of these players here, yes, in a way, they are more accurate. This is definitely more accurate, but in a way it's not. It's sort of mechanically induced accuracy, mechanically induced timing. This is clearly a lot better timed than this in sound. This sounds a bit weak, a bit under dimensioned with an older, weaker PSU. But again, this with that clicks really well because it's the same brand and it's basically the same model line, so they fit really well. And so even if I put like $50,000 of really good cables on this Denon CD player over to the Denon amplifier, it still doesn't sound as genuine compared to when I just use regular $1 power cables on all of my audio note gear, the Auto amp, the DAC 3, and the CDT-Four. Sorry, guys. It just doesn't sound as genuine, sincere, released, unfiltered, and pure. And what I kept noticing, because I made an experiment here where I fed the the CDT-Four over to the Technics DAC, and then I took it from the Technics DAC over to the audio note DAC, and then over to the amp. And what was interesting about that is that I kind of cleaned up the sound. I took certain parts of the sound and I made it better. And that's what I keep on hearing every time I hear a new device from China. You get this sort of effect where you're doing this with this over here, and then you get some aspects that are like a little bit better, a lot better. But the thing that most people don't realize in this hobby is that you can always take individual elements of the sound and go like, yeah, 2 times more bass, yeah, 2 times bigger soundstage, yeah, more resolution, so and so and so. And then it feels as if you're constantly getting access to more data. But the thing is, it took me a long time to realize that. The thing is, the purity of the sound is lost. The quality of the sound is lost. It doesn't feel like the artist is in the room. and they're playing right in front of you, it sounds like a recording. It sounds like it's over there by the speaker and it doesn't want to come over to you and surrender itself. It doesn't want to show you its true feelings, its true colors. It's sort of like sitting on the sound going like, yeah, we're just going to stay over here doing our thing. Like, yeah, we can't be bothered. And that's why I generally don't like Denon as a brand when we talk about all the normal lower models of the modern age. It's this sound of numbness, of not caring, of reservation, which in a way, to some degree, on some of their models, sound old-fashioned and natural, and you could call it a noble type of sound, but it's still a sound of like, so what? And that's the problem. All of these CD players, to some degree, all of them have some form of processing where you're getting a bit of this, you're getting a bit of that information, and it's mentally stimulating for a certain amount of time. But at some point, your brain just gets used to it and goes like, yeah, okay, that's the teak sound. Oh yeah, okay, that's the Denon sound. Macintosh, yeah, Denon, yeah. Of course, they get better with time, and if you compare like a Macintosh CD player like 25 years ago to some of the newer ones, of course you will see a sound that's generally a hell of a lot better, especially in terms of clarity, focus, isolating parts of the sound. But you will also see, to some degree, more processing. It's not it's hard to say. It just doesn't feel like real bass. Let me give you guys a good example. I was playing Tony Braxton, one of my favorite Tony Braxton albums, The Heat or something like that. I was playing it on the Denon thing, and it sounds so rich and voluptuous. But then you turn up the volume, then you really start listening to the specifics of the detail. And I have to say that you end up, after like half an hour's time, end up going like, yeah, okay, isn't that the same bass that I heard in the previous track? And then you listen to another track and it's like, isn't that the same this effect or that in the studio? And what I'm saying is that 24-bit sound is an illusion. On the surface, yes, it gives you more bass. And on the surface, yes, it gives you a more of a meaty, calm sound. And yes, on the surface, it is a lot better detailed than a lot of the older players that are only, I don't know, what are they, 16, 18-bit or whatever they're running. In a way, it all sounds a lot more structured. So this here from around 2010, this Denon player, is a lot more structured and civilized and sorted in sound than, for example, my 1990, I don't know what it is, 92, 93 player from Yamaha that I totally got restored and modified by basically the best guy in the business. But even though it's totally modified, totally pimped up, I can hear that the Yamaha CD player has a horrible timing. I can hear that, yes, there are some parts that are like so much better than even all the best CD players from Denon that you can buy. But the thing is that this thing sounds old and it sounds raw, and there is a certain form of authenticity to that. And this is like a Mark II, more modern version of a retro sound, more developed. I get that. But the thing is, in order for you to go from this point to that point, it involves a lot more manipulation of sound, of cleaning up the sound. And you're stuck at a point where you just can't go into these harder to play recordings. It just things sound awkward. If I play the Itzhak Perlman album on my Denon CD player, unless I've built the system up to be almost perfect, putting cables on that basically don't exist on the market, that would normally require that you have 50 to 100 to maybe $200,000 of cables. Yes, I can make it play close to that audio note type of sound, and in a certain limited kind of way it would be better. But just notice that I'm pouring in hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to make it that good, while the audio note thing by itself, using regular cheap ass cables, let me just show you, regular cheap ass cables like this thing here, okay, it just sounds more genuine, more pure, more itself, more together. And I'm just feeling that like where are we in hi-fi, where you get a thing like this that a lot of people want. This could be a top Macintosh, this could be a top Accuphase, Griffin, or whatever. And in the end, it all sounds tiny bit lifeless, a tiny bit plastic-like, just a tiny bit held back, managed. And yes, it gets the timing in a way a lot better. And you can turn up the volume more, and there's more of a sort of, what do you call it? Yeah, normalization effect. That's right. When you go from 16-bit to 24-bit, the music is a lot more normalized. So I can listen to like, I don't know, 10, 20% more volume on the amplifier doing that. And it's sort of nice because you have this sort of more meaty sound. But the thing is, you're getting more bass, but it's not real bass. You see? You're getting more bass, but it's a worse quality of bass. Same thing over here. This is not a retro sound. This is a very modern, vanilla focused sound. And in a way, it can sound a lot more natural when you fully set it up properly. Okay? So that's a real beauty over there. CD player, DAC, and streamer in one. Absolutely fantastic built-in streamer. And what I've done is I've put a USB key there with some files on it, which makes it even better. It has some SLC cache on it, which they never talk about in the business. But like, who talks about these things? Like do reviewers mention these type of things? No, they just want to sell gear. And what I'm saying is that, like, I'm just so annoyed that people don't notice these things. Like, do they have to be crazy like me in order to notice these these things that I'm talking about? This puffs up the recordings. It creams it up. It makes it slow and loose in the bass. It's a very nice retro sound. Accuphase have done it in their own way. Spectral have done it. Yamaha have done it. Sensui, Akai, all of those brands, they have done a version of this, which is their own voicing in their own way, and they're all good in their own kind of way, but it's still a sort of raw processed thing going in the same gears. Like you're driving a car and it's like stuck in one gear. It only goes to like 1 or 2, you know? And it's like, okay. Then you go over to an audio note thing, and then it's like gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, gear 5, you know? It's just constantly flexing its muscles, playing the music that it was supposed to be played like. But if you're doing it here and you're downgrading it from 24 to 16-bit, yeah, you don't get that heavy sound that is as normalized. You get it in a more raw packaging, and in a way it sounds better, but in a way it doesn't. In a way it sort of becomes a bit fragile, brittle, falls apart, becomes a bit too harsh. So you kind of want to play everything in 24-bit, and that's the problem. Most CD players on the market, they're not built in a way that is good enough in order to play true 16 bits. It just requires so much to play 16-bit without it being harsh, fragile, retro, just sounding old. And going back to the Pet Shop Boys here, you know, let's just play a tiny bit from it, just so you guys have an example. I'm just gonna put on number 4, Rent, and it's just the way that the personality talking about. That's the thing that's just sort of like whoa, what the hell just happened here? When I got that CD player, I was never prepared to play Pet Shop Boys, because when I play this on this CD player over here, that especially this Luxman CD player over here, but even this Technics thing over here, it just sounds awkward. It sounds sissy like. It sounds like the recording is falling apart, and you're going, okay, this is CD or lower quality. Yeah, I wish I had it on vinyl. Or sell the CD player, get some vinyl like I have over there, and then it might sound 2 or 3 times better, and then fine. But that's just the thing. On the CDT-Four, it sounds like vinyl. It sounds like I bought the 200 gram release of this, if there ever is such a thing, you know? It just sounds like it's vinyl. Like, what the hell? And yeah, Michael Jackson album. What was it called? On the back side of it, what was it called? Speed Demon. Fantastic track. Dirty Diana. That's really hard to play without it sounding simple, compressed, boosted, normalized. That's a surprisingly good song. A lot of other good songs, but here, if you took this CD, which is pretty good quality, and you play all the songs on it, okay, all the tracks on the songs, even on a half good CD player nowadays, modern CD player, they sound like they're using the same bass in the same studio. It's the same bass effect that they're adding. The same bass effect, same bass effect, same bass effect, same bass effect. And then you've got a bit of mixing, and then same bass effect, and then you've got the effects. And this effect sounded very much like this one on a regular CD player. And then, of course, it gets better with one of these top players, a lot better. But then you have something like this here, this CD player. And it's like, wow. It's like, okay, I can hear that this is recorded like in a month previously before this one. And they had a different acoustic in that studio, and on this track here they had to use another producer who didn't quite do the timing well, so they mixed a bit of this bass with that bass, but then here they added some other level of bass, and it just feels like all of these songs here, all these songs are special. They are made by individual people having different visions, different ways of making it come together. And then you sort of hear all the good stuff and all the bad stuff, how it works out throughout the entire album. But the thing is, on a regular CD player, this just has the same sort of sound going through all the tracks. That's just it. All of these tracks sound so much the same on a regular CD player. Even on this thing here, they all sound a tiny bit the same. And I would say that this is probably like around top 20, 30 CD player that I've heard. And I've heard most of the really good CD players out there. And I have to say that if this thing can't get close to making all of these things, all these tracks sound genuine and like their own production, I mean, what hope do we have? Do we have to have something like this in order to make it all sound super genuine? I just don't. I don't know. It's weird. You know, it's weird to me that we haven't in all of these years figured out that 24-bit just doesn't do the recordings justice. And I have to say that to just defend that statement just a tiny bit, yes, once we get over to Negra, it's clearly a hell of a lot better than this. And Negra does a 24-bit type of sound that's just a lot more nuanced, a lot more technically impressive, so that you're sort of bridging the gap between this sound and this sound here. So in between, you would probably have something that is Negra, or around that price of Negra Solution or something like that. Then I can sort of understand it, Then you get all the technicalities with the music, and then you have this Negra sound beating the audio note in all kinds of individual parts of the sound, but in a more forensic type of way. Okay, so yeah, the audio note has its limitations. True. And if you have like the best albums ever, I wouldn't really play it on this. I mean, they would truly sound amazing, but they wouldn't sound like super, super, super duper wow that made you appreciate those very, very, very best recordings. Then I would say that, okay, go with the Solution, go with the Spectral, go with the Negra type of players instead. But again, can you afford those super albums? Those super CD albums, they cost like $50 plus, that's crazy. And this here, what did this cost? This was like half a buck. This was like $2. This was probably like $5. Yeah, I probably paid like $8 for this, and you can see here. I don't know how much that is. What is that? Around $20 or something like that. I bought that in the 90s. And yeah, that's basically what I wanted to cover with this player. And to go more into detail about the specifics of the sound, how to optimize it, look at the blog that I've written on my site, my Real Hi-Fi Help blog. Then I talk about stuff like, in order to maximize the signal, when you're dealing with cables, try to match the coax cable so it matches the inside of the audio note signal, and try to match it with the inside of the DAC. If you can do that at the first part of the chain here instead of the second part here, it will actually make you maintain so much more of the audio note purity, and you'll go more away from this 24-bit sound over to the more maximum potential of the audio note sound. And then you can get away with having cables that aren't quite as good from the DAC to the amplifier. It's I've just found that out a couple of days ago. That is amazing. And I want to say that these AECO plugs here, okay, AECO plugs, where you solder the plugs directly to the cable, the pin of the plugs, instead of the housing of the plugs, it does a huge difference in terms of coupling, clarity, and reducing that own sound that most plugs have. Most plugs have a sound that is added sound, where the instruments don't sound genuine, where the plugs don't go out of the way. I have here in my possession, where is it? Where did we hide it? Oh my god. I have in my possession some of the best RCA cables ever that my friend made for me. But notice, this is Furtek. This is pretty much the top model you could buy at that point some years ago. Rhodium plugs. I have to say that those plugs disappoint hugely compared to these AECO plugs, which are cheaper. So these cheaper plugs that cost about half the price, they have an instrument authenticity that is like 2.5 times better than that over there. When I listen to some keyboard music via those plugs here, it sounds like a real keyboard. Or when I listen to a piano, it sounds like a real piano, like that specific piano. While when I'm over here in this Furtek world, it sounds boosted, it sounds highlighted, it sounds somehow managed and prettified, like the like the Denon player here. Something is being done to the signal, processed, making it prettier than it really is, and it's taking the authenticity of the sound out of it. So I wanted to share that. That's one of the key secrets to making audio gear sound as good as it can, either having the top model A and P RCA plugs in your cable or these ACO plugs. Both of them are good in their own way. It's, of course, depends on what cables you have with them. That's a whole other discussion by itself, but I just wanted to share that with you guys because no reviewer talks about these types of things. They just leave this up to the customer. The customer never really connects the dots, and you lose all the love for the audio note player. You lose the connection to the Denon sound, the true Denon sound. It can sound a hell of a lot better going from its standard sound to when you have these types of plugs on and these cables that I have. So that's all I wanted to share with you. I know it's a long video, sorry guys, but I really felt that this was needed. This review where you get into the full understanding of what it sounds to me. I don't want to cover stuff like the remote or how stupid it is to turn it on and off. You almost can't get to the button over there, as I can show you guys. See, it's almost impossible getting in there, turning it on and off, so I have to do that with a pen. That's, of course, the thing I don't like about it. But other than that, top sound. And I can actually make this thing here communicate very, very well with the Denon sound, since it is a similar sound, and it can sound decent with most DACs, more musical. But clearly, once you go from those two worlds over to something that's audio note, you just feel that like this couples a lot better than normal. It just surrenders itself a lot more to that sound, and it makes that DAC, which is now like, what is it now? It's like 30 years old, that DAC. It makes that DAC sound a lot better than it probably really is. I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for looking at this video. And yeah, let me in another video here try to probably review the Denon or Luxman or Technics more in detail. Then you can sort of understand why this thing is so good. So yeah, just to wrap up, on the surface, it sounds like a bouncy, distorted sound that's raw, and it doesn't play full black level, and you don't get the full clarity and stuff like that. But find a decent DAC that it matches, put it over to something like an audio note amp or similar, and you just have a level of musicality and enjoyment of sound that you usually can't get with CDs, because CDs have forever had this thin, harsh, flat sound where either you are listening to this to save money, or you're doing that, which is more, in general, more real, more analog, just feels like a much better recording. So I feel that this is sort of like the first proper CD player I've ever heard where I can just listen to most recordings out there, like probably 80+% of the recordings out there. And when I have the thing like this, it just feels like you can only listen to like maximum 50% of all the CDs that have ever been produced. And here, the more perfect CD player, it's more like 40%. It feels like I can only listen to maximum 40, more like, to be realistic, 30%. Because you just, when you have a thing like that, especially, you just want like the best recordings ever. And then you have to start buying albums that start at $20, $30, $40, $50 before it really starts to satisfy you, and it starts to sound analog and real and go away from this very digital sound that it has. And then it becomes a lot more convincing in sound. But before you know it, this cheap player, which is like $3,000 US, before you know it, you've used like a couple of $1,000s on just your CD collection, you know. And if you look at all my a couple of hundred CDs that I haven't used more than a couple of hundred, $200 or $300 in total for all of those CDs. No more than that. And if you have to use that amount of money on probably, I don't know, 10 or 20 albums instead, I just find that a bit of a ripoff, you know. But yeah, those are my feelings about the player. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye.